Welcome everyone to a very special edition of the Buck Stops here, and I'm of course the Buck, Kirk Buchner, along with today's co-host Chris Mouradian. How are you doing?
Doing good, Kirk. How you been over there?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. I'm pretty excited. Not as excited as Jasper the Friendly Corgi. You can follow him on Instagram, Jasper underscore the Friendly Corgi. And you know why he's excited, Chris?
Why is that?
Because he's a hockey fan. He loves his hockey. He can't wait to put on his Winnipeg Jets jersey. He doesn't have a Team Canada one. And cheer for an interesting tournament, which is a 6 dressed up as a 9.
Yeah.
In looking at the Four Nations Cup. I guess first off, it's certainly whetting the appetite for quality international hockey, which we haven't seen on the men's side in a long time, not best on best. Obviously, last Olympics, the NHL did not participate in the last World Cup of hockey. It was 2016, where they had that dreadful idea, two dreadful ideas, Team Europe and Team North America.
Yeah. Yeah, that was uninspiring to say the least.
Yeah, and Team Europe made it to the finals, and why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
When you look at that stacked roster, but that's not what they expected. What a disaster that would have been if Europe played Team North America.
Mm-hmm.
Like
not have a representative country specifically there. Yeah, that would have been a disaster.
Especially if they did that this year, where Canadians boo your anthem. And PSA, I didn't do that in the last one because the games are going to be in Montreal and Boston. Canada, just please be better. Don't boo an anthem. You want to hate Trump and some of that stuff. I get it. I totally get it. Shitting on these hockey players who have really nothing to do with it, with any of this stuff. And I'm just hoping that my countrymen are not going to be doing that. Of course, it's in Montreal, so who the hell knows what's going to happen. I remember them booing in Montreal when it was like a rendezvous series. Canada, like it was that Canada versus the Soviet Union.
So back in the 70s, yeah.
Well, this one was in the 80s.
80s, okay.
Yeah, so it was just I think it was just like 2 games, and one was in Montreal. So they had they were they were booing Michel Goulet, which okay, that's fine.
Fans are gonna fan. What do you expect?
Fans are gonna fan, but I hope we're not going to see a bit of that. But if we do, we do. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about the Four Nations Cup?
Oh, we'll say about 2.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I have more reservations about having a competitive tournament in the middle of a season right before the playoffs start, as opposed to something as far as like a non-competitive all-star game type scenario. That's really where my concerns come in with this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You have teams made up of all NHL players. And that's one of the stipulations for this, is that every team is made up of NHL players.
Right.
And then you add in the national pride of playing for your country. It means that these players are not going to be out there taking it easy on each other. So you have a team that's built their season towards a Stanley Cup, and now you got their best players playing 4 competitive games in the middle of the season, while a lot of other players are taking some time off, letting their bodies heal. And you run the risk of, like I said, with competitive games, you run the risk of injury. And I think that's a big concern. I hope it doesn't come back to bite the NHL in the ass on this, but what happens if Cale Makar gets injured in a game like this?
Which is certainly going to be possible. Anything is sort of possible when we're looking at a scenario with 4 teams playing, again, like you said, for pride. And this is not like any other sport. We've seen in the World Baseball Classic, I want that thing to work so bad, but and the Japan-USA final was a lot of fun to watch. Saying that, the US didn't send their best because their best didn't necessarily want to go. You could have put another US team out there. You could have had, there's so many countries where their best players weren't necessarily participating. This is totally different. Hockey players are built different. And I won't miss the All-Star game, which generally sucks.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think I can't remember the last time I've watched an All-Star game in hockey. It's awful hockey. So we're going to be guaranteed obviously some great hockey, high risk and little reward. Because even if you win this, and I say this with full disclosure, like Chris and I are bashing this. I know that when Canada plays the USA, we're going to be messaging back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadian to the American, right? We're just
absolutely
chirping at each other because we're watching it because we want to see some great hockey, which we're going to get. I don't know if it's going to be at Olympic level.
I don't think so either, because it's just these 4 teams. And obviously the elephant in the room that's missing is the Russian team. But yeah, clearly they set it up to be kind of border battle rival type scenarios with US, Canada, and Finland, Sweden.
Yeah, which left the Czechs as sort of the odd man out. And I guess if you're doing this mid-season, you could have potentially sort of put in those 2 teams. Maybe you get, because if you're going with that stipulation with the NHL that you have to be in the NHL, yes, Slovakia is really good. I don't think you could field a team from Slovakia of just of NHLers. Germany is a great team on the rise. Same thing.
Switzerland, another team that has quite a few NHLers now, but they're not quite to the level of filling out a team, I think, with all NHLers yet.
Yeah. So this is what we've got. It's going to be some great hockey. Montreal and Boston. If you're going to pick a city in each country, it's pretty hard to top those 2 in terms of what should be an electric crowd. Although I did read that some of the seats they're having a bit of trouble selling a lot of them games because they're pricing that out of existence.
Yeah, the only other place I think could maybe have rivaled Boston would be Minnesota. I think they would have easily filled their arena. Boston, I think, was having a little bit of trouble. Not sure on the Montreal side, but
yeah, but I guess for logistics, right? So if you do, let's say, Minnesota,
nice and close there,
Winnipeg, right? Winnipeg, I can speak from living there for a couple of years. You're not going to get the same kind of money you're going to get in Montreal or Boston. So even if that's 75% capacity and you fill it like you could in Winnipeg, if you make those prices, that's not being sold. Not right.
Yeah, and who wants to go to Winnipeg in February?
Not a whole lot of people.
Knowing that you lived there for a couple of years recently.
Well, I mean, I did like it, but then I worked from home. My wife could walk through the underpass to get to work.
Yeah.
We didn't have a car. The worst part about winter in Canada is sometimes the driving. I didn't have to worry about it. So it's easy for me to say I really liked Winnipeg. That was more conducive to the lifestyle I had. If I was going 20 minutes to work every day, I think you'd have a totally different answer from me. Saying that, we do have a very interesting tournament. So I thought we'd sort of take a look at each team and then come up with a prediction. I'm gonna start off with your team, the United States of America, which is icing the best team ever. In the US, I think they are the favorites. They have the most complete team top to bottom.
Yeah. Easily the strongest in net with Hellebuck and Ottinger. And then you got Swayman as your emergency third goaltender. Did have injury replacement here with Quinn Hughes taking the tournament off because of a hand injury. And to be fair, I mean, he's been missing regular season games because of it. So it's not like Peter Angelo up there and with the Canadian team where he's actually still playing, but he's taking the tournament off. So that's obviously a pretty big blow to the D on the American side, but still a pretty solid, pretty deep D there. Slavin, Fox, Werenski, McAvoy, Brock Faber, who's a nice young talent there in Minnesota, and then Noah Hannafin, kind of like your top six.
Yep. I was looking, actually, there was a great thing, I think it's on Hockey Psychology on YouTube, and it was a great thing on how Brock Faber is the best defenseman you haven't heard of yet.
Yeah, he's a name that really hasn't broken through to many of the casual fans yet, but Minnesota is obviously very happy with him, and those that are kind of following this tournament, they're going to see that he is one of the bright stars of the future there.
Now, one thing I like about your team too, that I know a lot of my friends do not like. A lot of people do not like the Kachucks. Matthew Kachuk is not liked by in some circles. I'm a huge fan personally. Uh, Now he gets to play with his brother, so that's going to be a lot of fun for those two.
Yeah, I mean, you put those two together with JT Miller down the middle there, and you have your uh, Brian line or whatever you want to call it out there throwing their bodies around. Which again, you need hitting to win these games, but at what cost to the players that are hitting and taking the hits in a gimmick tournament like this.
Well, again, as a Jets fan, right? I mean, like I'm so torn. I mean, I think I joked with our friend Ron Katz out in Denver. I said like I just need Connor to slump for 1 week.
Yeah, let this be the week that he
Yeah.
has his off.
But to be fair, that could potentially be how if there's a weakness in Hellebuck, it's sometimes in big games he's not as adept as he usually is. But even if that happens, let's say in game one, I got Ottinger.
Yeah,
We'll put in the snake, right? And you're just laughing. So, and also, I think you got the best sniper in Austin Matthews,
yeah.
who I believe is the team captain.
Well, it was. I thought it was Hughes, and then maybe they switched it to Matthews when Hughes pulled. I could be wrong there.
Unless, well, no, because Jack Hughes is still there, another great player.
Yeah, Jack Hughes is still there, but I forget who was. I thought Quinn was named the captain initially, but it could have been Austin Matthews.
Okay. Yeah, and I could be mistaken on that. Either way, it's the U.S.'s tournament to lose. I've said this to you before. Uh, I fully believe that the United States has overtaken Canada in hockey. And looking on this on paper, they may have.
Yeah.
So, but let's get to Canada, the
Sure.
team that always finds a way, even if they're not a favorite. When it comes to international tournaments on the men's and women's side, Canada always finds a way. And I guess we'll start the same way. There's one glaring weakness that Canada has, and I'm not even sure which player they've got like earmarked as their starting goalie. But either way, any one of those three, and Jordan Binnington, Sam Montembeault, and Aiden Hill. While Binnington and Hill might have Stanley Cups,
Mhm.
they're not Hellebuck and Ottinger.
No, that's true. Depth chart I'm looking at right now shows Hill is the number one. We'll see what happens when the games start playing.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is the weakness for Canada. Definitely, that just stands out when you look at this team on paper here.
Right, and that's sort of the one thing that I think anyone sort of like watching this knows is going to be the issue that they have. How they're going to overcome that, I don't know, but and I think that might be why they went a little bit bigger in defense with a little bit more grinders. Because
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, they're defensive and they got a nice pairing there with teammates Taves and McCare.
Right.
So that's obviously something that's going to work in their favor. And I think really whichever team, you know, is able to kind of come together as a team. All
Mhm.
these, players come from different NHL teams. Whoever can kind of gel and really become that team is going to be the one that's going to be the winner here. But talent wise, they did go with Drew Doughty, who hasn't he's got obviously a lot of experience. He doesn't really need a ton of time to learn the game or not learn the game. Get up to game speed. I mean, he's going to be out there. He's smart enough. He knows what he's going to do, even though he hasn't played much at all this year.
No, yeah, he's coming off that, but again, another proven winner. But Travis
Mhm.
Sanheim was an interesting choice to me.
Yeah, and again, another name that isn't known to the maybe the casual fans as well as some of these others, but clearly in the eyes of the architects of this team, somebody that they felt was in the top there that they wanted to be available to them. So
Mhm.
looks like he might be the odd man out right now, but we'll see how the games start playing out.
Yeah. Well, and they got to, it's because it's such a short tournament, they have to figure this out so quick.
Hmm.
Uh, on the forward side, it pretty much starts in with this with the center of the whole thing, Connor McDavid, who is obviously like I'd still say the best player in hockey right now. I know we didn't win the Hart Trophy, but we last year, but McDavid's in his prime. He wants this. He hasn't had a. I don't think he's ever had a win on any kind of level.
No, because of
From
the
North America.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and because of his age and when they
And there was no Olympics in 20,
right, right.
22.
So and that's the other thing with this tournament's depriving us of is Leon Draisaitl, with that being a German player there.
Right. And I like a lot of the choices here. Obviously, with Crosby, he might be older, but he's still, when it counts, he can still count on him.
Hmm.
Mark Stone. I think Mark Stone was the uncrowned Stanley Cup final MVP. Just his return when he came back to Vegas, I'm just finds a way to win. Sam Reinhart, another great one, who's just getting better and better. Braden Point, love that guy. Marner, Marchand, I think he's not playing with a chip on his shoulder. I think it was Crosby who said, might have been him or McDavid. I'm pretty sure it was Crosby. This is our game. We're here to defend it.
Hmm.
It just cuts differently in Canada.
Well, it does. I mean, obviously, yes, it's the Canadian national sport.
Mm.
Um, they've still got a team that is extremely dangerous on paper. A couple of guys you didn't mention there, Nathan McKinnon, obviously one of the top players from the Colorado team, and then Seth Jarvis is a fine young player out there in Carolina. That again, people are going to get to learn about him. That those that watch this tournament.
Mm-hmm. And then we also got Sam Bennett, Sorelli, Anthony Sorelli, Brandon Hagel.
Mm-hmm. Which is a
Again,
great, fourth, quote unquote fourth line there. A lot of talent on there, but guys that can play that role.
should we jump to Sweden now?
Sure.
Because I think Sweden they have another phenomenal team as always. And I guess starting from the pipes,
Yeah.
I think Markstrom's probably going to get the lion's share. Did they name the number one, or was it Gustafsson from
Yeah.
Minnesota?
So Markstrom was injured, so he is out.
Oh, that's right. He's out of this. Okay.
Yeah. So it's looking like depth chart wise, you got Linus Ullmark and then Philip Gustafsson backing him up. So compared to Canada and US, I would say that they probably have the second best goaltender tandem there.
I'd agree. Yep.
Ullmark with some good Stanley Cup experience there from his Boston days, and Gustafsson's really kind of turned it on with Minnesota recently here. Played himself up into a real top number one goaltender.
Defensively, I like this team also. One of my favorite players who's sort of stuck on this awful team, Rasmus Dahlin from the Sabres.
Mm-hmm.
If Sweden wins the whole thing, he's going to be the guy I'm the happiest for. He ain't winning anything in Buffalo.
They're getting better. Come on, they're not that far out.
Okay, I tell you what, you take Buffalo, I'll take the league.
Yeah.
No?
Maybe next year.
That's it.
Come on, we may have Buffalo fans watching us here. We gotta talk them up a little bit.
I'm good friends with a Buffalo fan. I will always have a soft spot for Buffalo in hockey and in football, having grown up where I did.
Mm-hmm.
I know that city very well. I think that city deserves to have a championship, and it would mean more to them than almost any other place in the country. I really believe that.
Too bad the NFL script didn't call for Buffalo to make the Super Bowl this year.
Well, they just wrote the script to get the teams that they wanted in there, and then at that point, they decided, well, we'll just sort of let that happen.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah.
But no, you got on defense, you got a couple of Norris Trophy winners there with Hedman and Carlson. So you
Oh
got
yeah.
some good offense. Jonas Brodin, another younger player out there in Minnesota. They got a real strong team out there in the state of hockey here. So uh, nice to see their representation across a number of different uh, rosters here.
And a lot of depth at forward.
Mhm.
I always forget that this man's from Sweden. It just is that name just throws me off every time. Micah Zibanejad.
Yeah. Uh, Not quite the statistical season that he's had in the past, but still a
Well,
talented forward there. And
the Rangers have almost given up on a whole lot of stuff. So, and
yeah,
that's sort of for maybe a player like Zibanejad and then Chris Kreider, who's on your team. You know, it just might be a nice break from the drama that's happening in MSG.
yeah, but they recently made that trade for JT Miller, so they're clearly thinking that they have a chance to make a run here coming into March and April. So we'll see where that goes. Um,
Hockey's
another
always more interesting when the original six teams are good.
Yes, yes. Down the middle there, behind Zibanejad, you got Elias Pettersson, who I'm obviously very familiar with from the Canucks. Uh, Kind of at the center of the whole shit show that's been the Canucks season this year with JT Miller,
That'll be
extremely talented
interesting
player.
when those teams go at it.
Exactly. You have the $11 million Pedersen going up against Miller with the bad blood that they've clearly had. Whether anybody's going to say exactly what it's from or not, wait and see. But when you talk about a tournament here that really doesn't mean anything, at least to the level of like an Olympic medal,
Mhm.
compared to what could be for teams fighting to get into the playoffs on both sides there.
Yeah, and the rest of this roster is also still so loaded. Victor Arvidsson, Jesper Bratt. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, Lucas Raymond, Detroit Red Wings
Mhm.
winger there. Another player that's really starting to come on. I know a lot of people that watch the game and kind of have him pegged as a future future superstar that could really potentially break records in some guys' minds. So
Good for
interesting to
him.
watch him play this in this tournament here and see how he develops over time.
The streaky William Nylander. When he's good, he's almost unstoppable. We'll see what kind of version we get of him in this
Mhm.
tournament. Because there were times he was carrying Toronto. As good as Austin Matthews is, but there were times that he could be just that good. Philip Forsberg, Adrian Kemp, Elias
Yeah.
Lindholm, just some super talent. I think when I'm looking at sort of the Swedish roster, it's not like they have. It's not like they're in Canada, like with Canada and the U.S. that have some really big stars at the top,
Mhm.
but their drop from 1 to 23 isn't much of a drop at all.
No, they got a pretty well-rounded team there. Even their extras there, Leo Carlson, younger player,
Mhm.
Gustav Forsling, who Canucks gave away in a ill-fated trade back when he was hadn't even really made the minors yet. Um, but is somebody that's really developed nicely for the Florida Panthers. Um, yeah, so even like I said, those guys down there at the bottom of the depth chart are good quality players that could easily slot in here and not miss a beat.
And that brings us to Finland, another team that is so loaded, yet I think everyone's expecting them to finish last because generally it's not a shot against Finland.
Mhm.
It's more of a testament to how good Canada, the United States, and Sweden are going into this. But the Finnish team, is capable of beating anybody.
Oh, sure, especially if Saros has one of his games in net. He's a very high quality goaltender. The problem the Finns really have is their defense is probably the weakest of the four teams here, and
Right.
that's really the glaring weakness that shows up on their depth chart there.
Yeah, I mean, as we're sort of like looking at that, I mean, the one of the names that sort of stands out the most to me is Miro Heiskanen. When he's still playing on this, or okay, because I
He's
thought,
injured. Yeah.
oh, so he's not even playing in this tournament.
No,
All right,
he's
so they just lost one of their like their best, well, one of my favorite blue liners anyway.
mhm. Yeah.
And
So he's out injured. Yeah, a couple of guys here that kind of barely qualify as being NHLers. Nick Metin Paulo. I think he's maybe played 10, 15 games in the NHL. So really, lack of depth there on the blue line is I think what's going to end up sinking them in at least a game here.
it could very well happen. Then for the forward though, forwards are very keep using the word loaded, but it's the right thing to say.
Well, when you're taking the best players from the best league and sliding them in with their country of origin,
Mhm.
you're going to have 12 to 14 really strong NHL quality players that are just the best of the best. And Mikko Rantanen up there up front with Alexander Barkov and Lehkonen on the wings there. Rupe Hintz, another young player down there in Dallas. Toivo Teravainen, Patrick Laine, not quite the season that you maybe expect out of him, but still a quality player.
He had a pretty good start to it. I think the person who, because he just impressed me so much in last year's playoffs, Barkov.
Mhm.
No, he's not going to. He he's like everything you want in a hockey player. Determined, will play through pain, and he's a natural leader. I mean, there's a reason why he became the first Finnish man to captain an NHL club.
Yep. And win the cup last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's definitely the heart and soul of this team.
Yeah, I think I used him as an elevator up last year, I believe.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, so these are our rosters. The US, I think you and I would both agree is the team to beat based
I
on the
think so.
rosters, but who is going to
Yeah.
meet them in the final? What's your prediction?
Oh, I think it's going to be Canada. I think U.S. Canada the forward depth with Team Canada there, I think will overcome their weakness in goal.
Mhm.
I mean, Aiden Hill, if he ends up being the number one guy, he's an NHL goaltender. He's a starter. He's gonna he's not gonna be a liability in net. He's just not as good as some of the other number ones for some of these other teams.
Right. I kept going back and forth in my mind between Canada and Sweden.
Mhm.
Uh, I still keep going back and forth to the point where I'm just going to go Canada only because obviously that's my nationality. I think Sweden could very well play spoiler. I think Finland, again, you never know with the Finns. You just never know. Finland again, capable of beating anybody at any time.
Sure. And any of these teams, they come out, they get, shit the bed in the first game and it just throws their whole tournament off. And then they're, they just can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So anything can happen. They say, 3 games plus then your, medal games or whatever you want to call it. um, yeah, I mean, it's really gonna, like I said earlier, whichever group is able to come together as a team will be the team that wins.
So, question then for you for our Hall of Fame purposes, because that's essentially what we discuss a lot, hence the show. If one, let's just go with the scenario of, I don't know, say the US wins,
Sure.
hypothetically. Does the Hockey Hall of Fame even look at this? Because this is not in the IIHF. So I imagine nothing here would help you with the IIHF Hall of Fame, or does it?
I don't think so. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, you don't even have one of the best teams, best international teams playing
Mhm.
with Team Russia. Obviously, Team Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic would have something to say about it.
Yeah.
Germany could find a way to make some noise, but I I really don't think so. I think this is really something that's on the level of a minor Canada Cup type tournament from remember those, which
Oh yeah, very well.
who talks about those these days, so I don't think this is really going to have any impact on Hall of Fame elevators or anything like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I kind of liken this to the 1980 1984 Summer Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're in 1980, yeah, you might have won your sport, but a whole lot of great competitors weren't there. Same in 84.
Summer, yeah, definitely. Yeah. The Winter Olympics with definitely had
Well, sure. I mean,
some stuff there with Haydn's and
but
Olympic
also there,
hockey.
there was no boycott, right? So like
Yeah,
if the Soviets boycott, which historically speaking, I'm a little surprised they didn't.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I think back in '80 they both Olympics were played or were competed in the same year. So the Winter
yeah.
Olympics were February
Mhm.
45 years ago, and the Summer Olympics were in July, August. So the United States pulled out of the Summer Olympics. I don't know if it was announced after the Winter Olympics had concluded, and obviously in '84 the Soviets bowed out of the Summer Olympics, and so yeah, I mean you do kind of have some asterisks there, but I still think that there's enough there
Yeah.
that maybe could have helped somebody, but
Yeah, but whatever happens, either way, I know that both of us want our countries to win.
hmm.
We're not going to be thinking about that at the time. But if I lose it, I'm going to say, well, it's not a real tournament anyway. Because
Exactly.
that's the type of petty person that I can be. Well, thank you all for watching this. Enjoy this. Keep your stick on the ice. And wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Easy for me to say. Bye.
Good night.